Why silence during a conflict often makes a woman trust you more. The trap of the reactive reflex. Most men think conflict is about winning. Winning the argument, winning the point, getting the last word. But here's the truth no one tells you. The moment you feel the urge to react, you've already lost control. Let's break this down psychologically. When she raises her voice, when her emotions spike, when the tension fills the room, your nervous system does something automatic. It prepares for defense. You justify, you interrupt, you escalate, you match her energy, and suddenly, it's not a conversation anymore. It's a feedback loop of escalation. The hidden pattern. She gets louder, you respond louder, you defend, she pushes harder. You explain, she stops listening. And now both of you are no longer trying to understand. You're trying to protect your ego. This is where most men fail. Because they think, if I don't respond, I look weak. But psychologically, the opposite is true. What's actually happening in her mind? When you react emotionally, you signal instability. You show you're affected. You become part of the chaos. And once you're inside the chaos, you can't lead it. But when you don't react, something strange happens. You break the pattern, the power shift. Silence interrupts expectation, and when expectation breaks, attention spikes. She starts thinking, why isn't he reacting? Did I go too far? Why is he so calm? Now suddenly, she's not fighting you anymore. She's trying to understand you. This is what most people never realize. Conflict is not about dominance. It's about emotional control, and the man who controls his reaction controls the entire direction of the interaction. Psychological insight. Silence removes fuel, and without fuel, conflict cannot sustain itself. Just like manipulators use silence to create pressure, you're using silence differently, not to control her, but to stabilize the environment. And in that moment, you stop being a participant in chaos and become something far more powerful, the one who contains it. The architecture of emotional holding space. There's a concept most men have never been taught, not by society, not by relationships, not by experience. It's called holding space. And no, it's not passive. It's not weak. It's not avoidance. It is one of the highest forms of emotional strength. What holding space actually means? Holding space means you can absorb emotional intensity without being moved by it. Think about that. Not suppressing your feelings, not ignoring her emotions, but standing there, fully present, without collapsing into reaction. Why this builds trust instantly? Because during conflict, she is not just expressing emotion. She is subconsciously asking one question. Is this man stable? When things are not, and most men fail this test, they get defensive, get emotional, get reactive, get overwhelmed. So what does she learn? He's not safe under pressure. But when you hold space, you send a completely different signal. The stability signal. Your calmness communicates. I'm not threatened by your emotions. I can handle intensity. I don't need to overpower you. And this creates something incredibly powerful. Psychological safety. Because safety is not created through words. It's created through nervous system regulation. The nervous system effect. When you stay calm, her nervous system begins to mirror yours. The emotional intensity starts to drop. The environment begins to stabilize. This is biology, not strategy. And here's the deeper truth. People trust those who can remain grounded when everyone else loses control. The invisible test. During emotional moments, she is unconsciously testing. Can you handle her worst moments? Can you stay present without collapsing? Can you lead without dominating? And silence is your answer. Important distinction. There's a difference between silent treatment, withdrawal, punishment, silent presence, grounded, aware, engaged. One creates distance. The other creates trust. And this is where most men get it wrong. They think silence means disengaging, but true silence means staying fully present without reacting. The mirror effect. When you hold space, you become a mirror. And in that mirror, she begins to see her tone, her emotions, her behavior, without resistance. Because you're not fighting her, she stops fighting you, and slowly, the intensity dissolves on its own. Silence as a non-verbal proof of competence. Now, let's go deeper. Because silence isn't just calming, it's communicating something powerful. It tells her something words never could. You are not emotionally threatened, and that changes everything. Why this matters so much. In conflict, most people speak to regain control, but when you don't need to speak, you show something rare. You already have control. The subconscious interpretation, when you stay silent, she doesn't see weakness. She sees confidence, emotional discipline, inner stability. Because insecure people need to react. Secure people choose when to respond. The shift in dynamic. At first, she is expressing emotion. But when you stay grounded, the dynamic flips. Now she starts explaining herself, softening her tone, regulating her own emotions. Why? Because there is no resistance. And without resistance, there is no enemy. The no enemy effect. Conflict needs opposition. When you remove opposition, the mind shifts from attack mode to reflection mode. This is where trust begins. Because she realizes, he's not here to fight me. He's here to understand me. Biological trust response. When there's no threat detected, cortisol drops, oxytocin increases, emotional openness rises. And suddenly, what started as conflict becomes connection. The reputation effect. Here's where it gets powerful over time. When you consistently respond with silence plus presence, you build a reputation in her mind. He doesn't panic. He doesn't react emotionally. He stays grounded no matter what. And that reputation becomes trust. Because trust is not built in calm moments. It's built in chaotic ones. The final shift. You are no longer defending, explaining, reacting. You become the anchor. And in a world full of emotional instability, the anchor is the most valuable position. So understand this. Silence in conflict is not absence. It is present at its highest level. It is not weakness. It is controlled strength. And when you master it, you don't just win arguments. You become someone she can trust when everything feels unstable. The biological basis for increased trust. Let's go deeper. Because this isn't just psychology. This is biology. When conflict starts, her body doesn't just react emotionally. It reacts physically. Heart rate increases. Breathing becomes shallow. Stress hormones spike. This is the fight-or-flight system. And in that state, she is not thinking logically. She's scanning for one thing. Am I safe right now or not? The mistake most men make. When you react, you raise your voice. You defend yourself. You interrupt. And instantly, her brain categorizes you as part of the threat. Now, you're no longer her partner. You're the opposition. What your silence does instead. When you stay calm, something powerful happens. Her nervous system receives a different signal. There is no danger here. And that begins to deactivate her stress response. The chemical shift. When there is no perceived threat, cortisol decreases. Adrenaline stabilizes. Oxytocin begins to rise. Oxytocin is the key. Because oxytocin is the bonding hormone, the trust chemical, the connection trigger. So while most men are trying to win the argument, you're doing something far more powerful. You're changing her internal chemistry. The calm nervous system effect. Your calmness acts like a regulator. Her system begins to mirror yours. This is called emotional co-regulation. And here's the truth. The calmest nervous system always leads the interaction. So when you remain grounded, you don't just look strong. You biologically pull her back into safety. Why this builds deep trust? Because trust is not built on logic. It's built on how someone makes you feel under stress. And when she realizes you don't escalate, you don't attack, you don't collapse, she starts associating you with stability. And stability is what the mind trusts. Any man can be calm when things are easy, but the man who stays calm when things are chaotic becomes emotionally irreplaceable. The silent invitation to de-escalate. Now, here's where silence becomes almost hypnotic. Because when you don't react, you create something rare. Space. And most people are uncomfortable with space. A psychological vacuum when you don't interrupt. When you don't defend. When you don't escalate, you create a vacuum, and the human mind hates vacuums. So what happens? she starts filling it. The shift you'll notice. At first, she's emotional, but then she begins to explain herself more clearly. Slow down her tone. Reflect on what she's saying. Why? Because you're not resisting. And without resistance, there's nothing to push against. The interrogation effect, your silence, creates a subtle pressure. Not aggressive, not dominant, but psychological. It makes her think, why isn't he reacting? Am I being too much? What is he thinking? And without you saying a word, she starts analyzing herself. This is similar to how silence can create pressure and manipulation dynamics, but here, it's used constructively to reduce chaos rather than control someone. The de-escalation loop. Instead of escalation, emotion, reaction, more emotion. You create emotion, silence, reflection.com, and once reflection begins, the emotional intensity naturally drops. Why this feels safe to her? Because you're not judging, interrupting, attacking. You're allowing her to process in real time. And that creates a powerful realization in her mind. Like, I can express myself, and he won't turn it into a fight. That's rare. And rare creates attachment. The hidden power. You're not controlling her. You're controlling the environment. And when the environment feels safe, people naturally soften. It is an invitation for her to calm down, think clearly, reconnect, and most importantly, trust you. Implementing mastery in real time. Now, let's make this real, because theory means nothing if you can't apply it in the moment. The critical moment. The hardest part is not understanding silence. It's holding it when your ego is triggered, because in that moment, you want to defend, you want to explain, you want to prove your point. That's your ego, not your strength. Step 1. Control your body first. Before you control the situation, control your physiology. In the moment, relax your shoulders, slow your breathing. Keep your posture steady, because your body signals everything, even before your words do. Step 2. Maintain calm, eye contact, not aggressive, not intense, just steady. This shows you're present, you're listening, you're not intimidated. And this alone communicates more than words ever could. Step 3. Let the silence work. Don't rush to fill the gap. Let it stretch. Yes, it will feel uncomfortable. That's the point. Because that discomfort is where the shift happens. Step 4. Know when to speak. Silence is powerful, but timing is everything. You don't stay silent forever. You speak when her tone softens, the intensity drops, she becomes more rational. Then you respond calmly. I understand what you're saying. Let's figure this out. I'm here, not against you. Now your words land differently, because the environment is no longer chaotic. Step 5. Avoid the 2 biggest mistakes. Silent treatment, punishment, passive withdrawal, disengagement. Both destroy trust. Your silence must feel like presence, not absence. The long-term effect. If you do this consistently, something powerful happens. She stops escalating, because subconsciously, she knows this won't turn into a fight. And over time, you become her emotional anchor. You are no longer reacting, you are regulating. You are no longer defending, you are stabilizing. You are no longer part of the conflict. You are the one who ends it. And when you master this, silence is no longer something you use. It becomes who you are. A man who doesn't need to raise his voice, because his presence already speaks. The identity shift from reactor to anchor at this point. You need to understand something deeper. This isn't about using silence as a tactic. It's about becoming someone who doesn't need to react, because tactics can fail. But identity is automatic. The 2 types of men in conflict. There are only 2 types. 1. The reactor feels, gives, reacts instantly, gets pulled into emotion, tries to control the outcome, needs to be understood. 2. The anchor feels, gives, observes first, chooses when to respond, controls himself, not her, doesn't need to prove anything. And here's the truth. She doesn't trust the reactor. She relies on the anchor. Why this identity is so powerful? Because when you become the anchor, you remove unpredictability, and the human brain trusts what is predictable under stress. Think about it. If every conflict turns into chaos, she feels unstable. But if every conflict leads to calm, she feels safe. The subconscious label, without realizing it. She starts labeling you as, he's grounded, he doesn't lose control, he can handle pressure, and that label becomes trust. The hidden dynamic. Most men try to control the situation, but high-level presence works differently. You don't control the situation. You control yourself. And when you control yourself, the situation starts to organize around you. Identity lock-in. So stop asking, what should I say in conflict? Start becoming the man who doesn't need to say much, because his presence already stabilizes everything. Why silence makes you emotionally irreplaceable. Now let's talk about something most men never reach. Emotional value. Because attraction can get you in the door, but trust is what keeps you there. The modern problem. Most people today are reactive, distracted, emotionally unstable. So conflict becomes loud, dramatic, exhausting. And over time that creates emotional fatigue. What she's actually looking for. Not perfection. Not dominance. Not control. She's looking for relief. Someone who doesn't make things worse. Someone who doesn't turn every issue into chaos. Someone who can handle emotional weight. Where you become different. When you master silence, you become rare. Because instead of adding pressure, you remove Italiano instead of reacting. You absorb instead of escalating. You stabilize. The emotional contrast effect. She has experienced men who argue, men who defend, men who shut down. But when she experiences you, you stay present. You stay calm, you stay grounded. That contrast creates something powerful. Attachment, the psychological imprint. Her mind starts associating you with peace, safety, stability. And once that association is built, you become very hard to replace. Because most people don't offer that. The hidden truth. The hidden truth. People don't remember every word you say, but they always remember how they felt around you. And if she feels safe in Chalice understood without pressure, calm instead of overwhelmed, then your silence becomes your power. You don't become valuable by saying more. You become valuable by needing to say less and meaning more. The final realization. Silence is controlled power. Let's bring this all together. Most men think power looks like talking louder, proving a point, winning arguments. But real power is much quieter than that. The final shift power is staying calm when tested, staying grounded when provoked, staying present when things get intense. Because anyone can react, but very few can remain still under pressure. The ultimate truth. Silence during conflict is not avoidance, weakness, passivity. It is emotional discipline. And emotional discipline is what creates trust. The moment everything changes. The moment you stop reacting is the moment you start leading. Because now, you're not controlled by emotion. You're not pulled into chaos. You're not seeking validation. You are steady, and steady is what people trust. The deep realization. She doesn't trust you because you said the right words. She trusts you because you didn't lose control when it mattered. So the next time conflict happens, and everything in you wants to react, pause, breathe, stay still. Because in that moment, you're not just avoiding a fight, you're proving something much deeper. That you're not another emotional reaction. You are the calm in the chaos. And once she feels that, she won't just hear you differently. She will trust you differently.